Hi there, my name is Marc Reeves. I'm the creator of this course, How to Get a Job in Retail. Now first, I'd like to congratulate you for taking the first step of purchasing this course, as I believe between us, this is going to make all the difference and it's going to increase your chances of being successful in getting a job in retail. Now you can see the title of this first episode, Episode 1, How to Get a Job in Retail, even if you've never worked before. Now you may have applied for a job in retail, you may be waiting to hear the results of that application, you may have an interview on the way, or unfortunately you may have heard back and it's bad news. But you are in the best place right now, so let's get this learning started. Now, part of you might be thinking, why am I qualified to be teaching you about how to get a job in retail? Well, the first reason, I think the biggest reason, and the one that's going to be of most advantage to you, is that I have worked within retail altogether for nearly 25 years. I have worked for one of the top 5 retail companies within the UK for 22 years in that period. I have started at the bottom and I have gained so much experience within those 22 years within that company that I am now at a shift leader level. So now I am responsible for what happens during my shift when I'm running the store. 9 times out of 10, there's no other manager there. I am responsible for what happens. I am responsible for the staff. So I think I am more than qualified to explain how retail works to you and to help you along this journey to get yourself into that dream retail job that you're after. But the first question, why? Why retail? Why have you chosen to go into retail? Now, a lot of people, and as you can imagine over the 22 years of me working for this particular company, now throughout this series I'm going to refer to that company as Tico. I'm doing that for legal reasons, but as you can probably imagine, there's only a few letters left out in that word. So the majority of the intelligent people are going to be able to guess what company I do work for. So, why? Why have you chosen retail? I'm going to be very straightforward and blunt to some extent within this video series. Retail is not an easy job. That is for a number of reasons. You'll speak to a lot of people, and if you tell them I work in retail, the main thing they are going to picture is someone standing there at a till, just scanning products, and that's basically it. Or the other stereotype is someone who's stacking beans or tins on a shelf. That may have been the case back in the 40s and 50s, 60s, maybe. But now that's all changed. If you've gone ahead and you have bought the Shift Leader edition of this video series, then you will be exposed to all my knowledge when it comes to running a shift, all the routines that are required, and the mindset that you need to have. If you've bought the customer assistant edition, then you will be exposed to what it is like to be on the shop floor, because you're going to be the person who, in some respects, is more exposed to customers, more exposed to the shop floor in some respects compared to a shift leader or a manager. So before you go forward now anymore, watching the next video or the next part of this course, I'd have a good think to yourself, why have I chosen retail? It is hard. It's very hard now to get into. Not like it was when I started with Tico 22 years ago. Right now the year is 2025 and I've been there for 22 years. The company has changed a hell of a lot since then. Whereas you may have had 4 or 5 people applying for one position, now you are getting the tens and maybe the hundreds applying for just one position. So you need that edge. You need to be able to put yourself apart from the other applicants. And I am very sure you follow my advice that I'm going to give you. And this is lived advice. This isn't just stuff I've read in a book. I've lived through 22 years of working for this company. And if your main goal is to work for the same company as me, then you need to follow my advice, especially if you've got other aspirations and you want to be a shift leader or higher. I am going to teach you what you need to know, the mindset you need to have, and honestly how hard it's going to be. So you've chosen retail. You have now in your mind a very strong understanding of your motivation behind why you have chosen retail. And it's not now, you get out of your mind that it's just a job. You will go in, you're going to have a career now in retail. And that is the important thing, the important mind shift that you need to have. Because when you get to the stage of going into that interview, actually before then, you are filling in your application. Now, in this digital world, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be filling in an online application, especially when it comes to the company that I am most familiar with. But we will be going through other companies, the top 5 retail companies. I'm based in the UK, so the majority of my information will be about UK-based retail companies. We will be going through the top 5. And as you'll see in the documents that I provided for you, each of these top 5 retail companies have different recruitment techniques and criteria that they follow. But you need to have a mind shift. And by the way, if you cannot tell, that is a picture of an inside of the mind. Throughout this course, you will have the honour of experiencing other amazing pictures with me using my artistic skill. So that is a mind. So yes, you need to now have a mind shift. Because when you fill in that application, when you go for that interview, what needs to come across is that you are offering value to that company. The skills that you have already, no doubt, are going to be of value, but you need to articulate that in a particular way with your online application and when it comes to your interview. Slightly different. Go back in time now, 22 years when I started. The application process was slightly different. I went in there and there was no online application then. You went in for an interview. Obviously you gave in your initial information and then you went in for an interview. I had come straight out of college, and that may be what a lot of you are doing. You're coming straight out of college, you're coming straight out of university. Now, I've got a university degree myself. I have a 2-1 in psychology, and I also have half a master's degree as well in psychology. So if you're coming from a university or college background, you know what it's like to work hard. Potentially, you have worked, you may have had another job before you're applying for one of these top 5 companies in retail. You may have had another job and you had to do that job and you had to study as well for your college course or your degree. I did that. I did my degree with the Open University and it was part-time. So it took me 6 years to get a degree, which if I would have gone to a physical building would have took me 3 years to get. So I did that as well as work. So if you've got that sort of background, you can talk about that. You can talk about the effort and the resilience that took. That will go a long way. Especially now. We're talking about the current time. We're talking about the fact that there is going to be potentially hundreds of people, depending on what area you're living in the UK, you can have a situation where there's hundreds of people applying for that one job. Now, some of these people may not have a college or a university background. If you're sat there now and you haven't got one of them, that doesn't mean you may as well just forget about your dream. No. You're still going to have skills, you're going to have value, you're going to have those aspirations, and you need to put that across in the application, you need to put that across in the interview. But it's very important that you shift now your mindset, because you have value to offer this company, but you need to make it very clear to them what that value is. So there's one thing we need to be very clear on. What sort of environment in retail are you looking for? Because there are many, many different retail environments. Where I work at Tico, I work in one of the smaller stores. And that environment is very different, especially if you have become a shift leader or looking to become a shift leader. This is why you bought this course. That is a very different environment to working in one of the larger stores, where you may be a customer assistant or you may be a shift leader there. If it was me, I'd be looking at the other factors in my life. What is my home life like? Am I single? Am I married? Do I have children? Do I have the energy? Am I looking for a more energizing environment? Do I want it more fast-paced? Do I want that stress? Because if you're looking to go up the ladder, basically, look, the reality is, if you go for any position above customer assistant, shift leader, store manager and above, you are going to be getting stress. The reality of the situation is now that if where you're working is anything like the shop that I work in, when you walk out that door, there is still a connection. There is going to be no doubt you're going to be part of a WhatsApp group or the company app. There'll be a management group that you'll be part of if you are a shift leader. And there will be contact through that group, there will be messages going through. So it's not the case like it was years ago. Once you clock off at maybe 3 o'clock or midnight, or depending on what time you were working, your work doesn't necessarily stay at the shop. It will be coming home with you as well. And when it comes to the training as well, that you are expected to do, or the in-store training through the online portal. A lot of the time they will expect you to do that at home if you have internet access. I'm guessing the fact that you're watching this course, you've got it through the internet and you have internet access, that's not going to be an issue. But that is also something to bear in mind. So have a think now. If you're going for one of the top 5 retail companies, what environment are you looking for? How much stress are you willing to put up with? Because that is a big part of it. You may have several people behind you waiting to get into your position. So you need to be willing to face that stress. And when it comes, you need to be able to deal with it. If you're looking for a more calmer environment, there are those positions available. But let's not forget, there is lots of different sorts of retail jobs. It could even be a corner shop. Now, of course, you're not going to get the stresses that you get in a large top 5 supermarket chain in a corner shop. Or you may have the aspirations of running your own corner shop. That is not something which I have the knowledge to help you with. But even in that situation, if you're thinking of starting your own retail business, you are going to face a lot of hard work, a lot of stress. So that is a part of it. That's something you're going to have to get used to. Now, if you're thinking, well, I can possibly escape a lot of the stress if I'm a customer assistant, that is not true. Again, it's going to depend on what format you're working in, especially if you're going for one of the top 5 retail companies. But I see it. Every shift that I'm running that shift, especially if you are one of the customer assistants who are opening up in the morning or working till close. There is stress, there are deadlines. You will have your shift leader pushing you to get stuff done. Now, of course, if you're a new starter, you're not expected to know everything straight away, but you are expected to be alert and open and basically to have the intelligence and the right mindset to know that you are there to work, you are there to learn what you are being taught. So that is something you need to keep in mind. There is going to be no escape from some pressure and some stress, especially in the beginning. But once you get over that initial hump, then you'll start enjoying it, and you'll become familiar with the job, with the role, and especially when it comes to being a shift leader as well. If you bought this course because you have aspirations to become a shift leader, then it will be hard to begin with. No matter what environment that you choose, it will be hard, but you just have to have the patience, you have to gut it out until you get over that initial hurdle. But then you will feel better, you'll feel like you're in a better place then, and you'll feel more confident. So environment. What environment do you want to be in? So, picture this scenario. We are complete strangers. I brought you into a room, told you my name. I already know your name, even though we're strangers. And we've both sat down. I'm sitting there looking at you. And I say to you, okay, why do you want to work with me and my staff here? What are you going to say? What is your pitch, because you need to have one. You need to have these answers. You cannot wing it. Whatever you do, do not think that you'll be able to wing this interview on the day. You're not going to. You're going to be too nervous. You may not even have been to this place before, so you're going to be stressed. Something will go wrong. You might get there late. You may get there too early. I'll be standing around. So know your pitch. When they ask you these questions, know what your answers are going to be. Initially, it'll be a bit of a chit chat. They will ask you about your interests as well. It will be, in a lot of sense, an informal conversation. There won't be any suits, even though you might be wearing one. And on that note, it is very important to look good and make a first good impression. Okay? There's no good going in there and being overly loud or overly quiet, mumbling. You need to make that first good impression. And I'll tell you a quick story now. This is true. So at the moment, this is late 2025, okay, for me right now. And our store recently taken on a few new members because there was vacancies available. So this is something which was told to me by someone who was influential at the time. I obviously can't give away too much information, but someone who was interested in the job came in. It was a local customer, because where I live, my shop is in a small village, a small community. And so this person came in and they spoke to someone there, and this person was in charge of the interviewing. And they were basically struggling with their right to work. They couldn't get it to send, they couldn't get it to work online through the application portal. So they asked the person there, and they got the advice and they left. So the person there who was in charge basically said that they will not be offering the job to the person, because for the position was for the bake-off. So the person who comes in the morning very early when the shop opens, or just before the shop opens, and bakes the bake-off items in the ovens and then puts them on display. So they're only there for, say, 2 or 3 hours. So the person there had already decided they weren't going to choose that person for an interview, let alone offer them the position, because he noticed that they had dirty nails. And the fact that you're going to be working in a food environment, obviously very important, personal hygiene, how you are. So I don't blame him for the fact that he didn't even interview that person based on the fact they had filthy nails. So that proves the point that how you look, how you present yourself is very important. Now that person may never know, I'm sure they will never know, the fact why they didn't even get through to interview, because they had dirty nails. In some respects, it's something quite simple, but there could be a number of reasons why they had dirty nails and they don't have the right mindset about how they present themselves. So this is very important, even from the very early stages. So anyone you speak to, if you happen to speak to someone over the phone about your application, if you speak to someone in person, you have to go in before the interview to clarify something. Don't go in your pajamas. Don't go in looking scruffy. You are, to some extent, maybe it's not the right word to use, but you're being judged on your appearance, on how you present yourself. Okay, so you need to bear that in mind. So I will not go through with you now a whole list of interview techniques. I have provided documents within this video series, so they are provided within both packages, the customer system package and the shift leader one. So please study them, please go through them. But just don't stick with what I provided you. I am no expert when it comes to the interview technique and all the studies and all the history behind that. Go and do your own research. Okay, that's very important as well. Find out, go online, watch free YouTube videos. You don't even have to pay any money. But this is the kind of mindset that you need now. You need to do whatever is necessary to get through that initial application phase. If you are going to work in a corner shop, then obviously what I'm saying, some of what I'm saying to you is not relevant. But it's still going to be relevant when it comes to how you present yourself. But if you were looking to work in one of the top 5 retail companies within the UK, you're going to have to go through all these stages, and it's very important how you do that. So please take the time. At this point now, you should be in the right mindset that I'm going to do whatever is necessary to be successful at every stage of the process. The initial application. With some companies you are going to get online tests as well. I've included documents which show, there's a whole list, what the company is, what their application process is like, what tests they tend to do during the early application process, so you can get ahead. If you're not familiar with these tests, go online, look them up, find examples of these tests and practice before you do the real one online. And after the initial stage, you're looking at the interview stage. Do your homework. What I'm telling you throughout all this course is going to be very important, but you need to take the extra step. You need to get out there. You need to put whatever enjoyable activity is taking up a lot of your time, and you need to put that aside. You may have to put that aside for several months before you are successful in getting the dream job that you are aspiring to get. So that is the sort of hard, stubborn mindset. Now some people will say to you, well, it's wrong to be stubborn. It depends what you're being stubborn about. If you're being stubborn about because your wife has asked you to do the dishes and you won't do them, that is a very different type of stubbornness compared to having the right stubborn mindset that I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do whatever is necessary. If your friend James phones you up and he says Bob, because for the purposes of this, your name's Bob, or Mary, please come out with us. We want to go to the local nightclub or whatever you have in your area. You want to go to town, you want to go drinking on Friday night. I'm sorry. This needs to be your response. I'm very sorry. I would love to come with you, but I'm trying to get my dream job in retail. I'm trying to be a shift leader. I'm trying to be a manager. I have my interview. I'm sorry, Joe, I can't come. I have my interview. Today is Friday. I have my interview on Monday. I still need to practice for my interview. So I'm sorry I can't come with you. I'll see you next weekend. This is how strict you're going to have to be with yourself. But trust me, it will be worth it. Yo, Ben, how's it going, my son? Yes, my name is Mark. I'm very nervous. 2 examples of how you do not want to present yourself at the interview. Now, we are talking looking the part. Nice guy, yeah? He's done his hair, he's shaved. If you have a beard, nothing wrong with a beard. You can see I have a beard. This is exactly how I look now. Hair, beard, this is how I dress for work. So you can look presentable even with a beard. If you have a long beard due to religious reasons, no issue. Tesco is very open, that will not be an issue. But they have to see that you've made the effort. You have to go in there looking clean, looking tidy. Do not turn up in joggers or something untidy. But look, there's another side of it, okay? You may be coming from a very underprivileged background, and you may not have. This is the reality of some people going into work, because I see it every day where I live and where I work. And in the last batch of people who applied to our store, some of them were coming from an unfortunate place. If you do not have fancy, nice clothes to wear for your interview, you can still look smart. You can be shaved, you can have your hair done, whatever looks good for you, you can still do that. So please do not allow that to be an excuse, or you do not give them that reason not to take you on to the next stage, because you haven't put the effort in on how you look and present yourself. Of course, what I just did was 2 extremes of how to present yourself. Someone who was very overconfident and inappropriate in their introduction in the interview, and obviously the other extreme, someone being very nervous. I would be, if it was myself now, if I was applying now for the company, I would be somewhere in the middle. You want to be humble, but you also want to appear confident in how you look, what you're saying, and how that confidence can benefit the business. Because at the end of the day, they are looking at you and they are thinking, is this person going to benefit the business? Well, actually, initially, the store manager who interviews you is going to be thinking, is this person going to benefit my shop? If you are in one of the smaller stores of one of the top 5 UK supermarkets, then usually the site managers are only there for a few years and they move on and you get a new site manager. In my store, I've been there for 22 years. Goodness, we must have had 20 odd managers. Must have been. So at the time, when you go for the interview with this particular site manager, all he cares about is his time at the shop. Are you going to contribute to that store in a positive way? He's looking at you. Is this person going to come in looking tidy? Is this person going to turn up on time? Were you on time for your interview? Were you early? Now, a lot of advice you would hear is to tell you to turn up early. That's good. I would do that. I've done that. Don't be too early, because unless you're the very first person, but you can't always guarantee that's going to be the case, even if you have an early appointment. So he may only turn up 10 minutes before the first interview that he's going to do. You don't want to be there half an hour early, because that's going to make you feel very awkward. There's going to be staff, they're going to have to put you somewhere, possibly in the canteen. You're going to have staff back and forth. It's just an awkward situation which you don't want to be in. I wouldn't arrive any more than say 15 minutes before your appointment for your interview. Go in there. It's going to be taking place in the office, no doubt. Go in there, you want a firm, this goes for men and women, you want a firm but confident handshake as well. It's going to be casual, okay? It's going to be a casual conversation, but they're going to be looking at you, they're going to be listening to how you speak. How is, tell you what, right? They're going to be thinking, how is this person going to come across to customers? How are they going to speak to customers? So you want to go in and you want to talk in the same way that you would speak to a customer. So they want to see you being understanding, respectful, but also confident. Because the truth is, when customers come in, and all of us have been customers at some point, you probably experienced this yourself. You go up to someone who's working there, and you ask them where something is or what they know about something, and they come across like they do not care what you've asked them, they don't really care, or they don't know, or they come across like someone who shouldn't be working there, then that makes a difference. That impacts the store, that will impact the reputation, that customer may not come back again. And the site manager is very interested in having customers come back time after time. He needs to make a certain amount of sales, he needs to make a certain amount of money for that store every day, every week, every month, or he will get it in the neck. So please, look the part and be the part. Okay, let's get down to the practical stuff now. First part, how are you applying for these jobs? Are you applying for them in a smart, strategic way? It's no good just randomly applying for jobs. Now, if you are going to be going for one of the top 5 retail supermarkets within the UK, including the one that I work for, you need to be very clever about how you are doing it. Especially when it comes to my company that I work for, is when you go onto their online portal, the way that you apply for the jobs, I think you have a certain limit that it goes up to. You cannot apply for hundreds of positions at the same time. So you need to be smart about how you are applying for these positions. Let's say, for example, you just want to get any retail job in your area. If you're living in any sort of town, a reasonable sized town or city, there are going to be several of the top 5 retail companies within that area. So you need to, step 1, decide which of these retail companies that you're interested in. Now, if you look in the documents that I have provided, you'll see that I have provided information, lots of detailed information based on the top 5 retail companies in the UK, and it details everything you need to know about them, what their uniforms are like, how much they typically pay, what you can expect in the line of work, the different store formats that they have, what work you will be expected to do, lots of detail. So decide which of these supermarkets you want to work for and then apply from there. So if it was me right now, I would go on to each of their websites, Say for argument's sake you're interested in working for any of the top 5. Bring up the top 5 of the supermarket's websites, open up an account for each one of them. Well, before this though, you have to have all your ducks in a row, so you need to make sure that your CV is ready, you have all the information that is required, which they are going to ask for. There's this thing you may not have heard about before, called a right to work. This is proof which you need to give them. You will have a couple of choices between how you prove that. But basically it's a process, it's a form which they must complete as well for legal reasons if you're going to come and work for their business. That you need to prove you were born in the UK or you have the right to work within the UK. So you make sure you have all this done, your CV is ready, everything. So as soon as you go on there, you make that account, you fill in the information and then you can send. What I have had to suffer personally is in the past I did not have all my ducks in a row, so I came onto these websites, went to apply, and I realised my CV is not up to date. Now that is annoying when you have to leave that. You're motivated, you're on there, you want to fill in these applications, but you have to leave it now. You've got to go back and update your CV. Avoid that annoyance. Get your mindset right like we spoke before. Get everything in a row and then you're ready. So if it was me, I'd be on each of these websites, fill in their applications. When you go on there, obviously they're going to be talking about areas where you want to work. Study the information I've given you and do your own research as well on these companies. If you're after working in a particular shop that's not far from where you live, it's convenient. Maybe you only want to work part-time, that's something else as well. Do not expect to go in, especially at customer assistant level, don't expect to go in there and they'll be offering you a full-time 30+ hour contract. Doesn't exist anymore. The majority of the time, they're going to be offering you part-time hours. They do not want lots of people, especially in the smaller formats, they do not want a lot of colleagues on a high hours contracts. It does not suit the store, it will not suit the manager, and it definitely will not suit payroll because they do not want to pay it. They want a flexible team on small contracts, so when it comes to covering sickness, when it comes to covering holidays, they will have the number of people there to do it, and they won't have someone who is on a 30+ hour contract who then they have to pay all of that sickness, all of that holiday. So please be aware, be realistic on what number of hours they are going to be offering you. So go in there, be in the right frame of mind, fill in the online applications, have all your ducks in a row, and then, fingers crossed, if you've applied all the information I've said about making yourself stand out, about having that stubborn attitude that I'm going to get this retail job that I want, even though I've never worked before, I'm going to show this company, I'm going to show this manager that I am the person that they need to employ. So we've got to the end now of this first episode, and I wanted to share some bonus tips with you. How are you really going to get yourself to stand out during the interview process? There's a couple of things, right? The main thing that the manager is looking for is someone who shows initiative, who is friendly, and who presents themselves well. Okay? If you go in there, you're smiling, they see you have a bubbly personality, even if you're on the quieter side, on the personality scale, doesn't matter. They want to see that you are friendly and you can be friendly to people that you do not know. Ask questions as well in the interview. Please, when it comes to a certain point, perhaps at the end, when they say to you, have you got any questions, do not say no. There's lots that you can ask for. You can ask about when are you likely to hear after this interview. Now, there's been situations and stories that I've heard over the years where in fact they are meant to tell you, say, a few days after or when they've interviewed the rest of the people. But it could be a situation where there's three or four positions available and you are one of perhaps 10 people being interviewed on that day, and the manager is meant to wait until he's interviewed the rest of the group of people. But there's been times when the manager has given that person a hint that you have been successful and you will be hearing from them. So just imagine that. You've had the initiative to ask when you will hear, and if his manager thinks that you're on the level and you are someone who can be trusted and you're someone he's going to work well with, there's a chance he may tell you there and then, or give you some hint that you have been successful. I think how amazing you would feel leaving an interview because you had the initiative to ask just that one question. And he will then see, well, this is someone who wants to plan, this is someone who's looking to the future as well. Is that how he's going to be in the shop? Or is he just going to be standing there idly, not doing anything and thinking about what he's having for lunch? No. So that is the sort of impression that you need to make. And also, very, very important, listen to me now, when it comes to, they ask your availability, if you've got your mind right, and this is the job that you want, you tell them, you make it very clear, you put that on your initial application as well, because this is what they are looking for. Your availability is everything. You're available for whatever shifts that are available. Obviously, this is based on your own personal circumstances. If you have children and are a single parent, you may not be available for all these hours. But if in the best case scenario you are single, you have no dependents, no children, and you want this job and you are building this career, you tell them that you have full availability. Because a lot of people will go in there, they do not want to work weekends where they want to be out, they do not want to work evenings, they do not want to work early mornings. That means making the effort, the horrible effort of having to maybe work till midnight when you're tired at the end of the day, or having to get up early at maybe 3-4 o'clock to get to the shop at 5:30 to open it. Now, who are you going to be? Are you going to be the person who says, I'm sorry, I'm only available in the middle of the day for 7 days a week? Or are you going to be the person who they take on because your availability is 100%? You're able to do the weekends, you're able to do the very unpopular shifts. Because mark my words, it will not be like that forever. Managers change, situations change. What you want to do is you want to get in there, you want to get that permanent contract, and then, as I say, things change. Situations will change in your advantage, and you'll be able to change those hours at some point. You may be able to increase your hours. So I had that as a personal experience myself. Over the years, I have gone from doing just till midnight, I think it was something like 14 hours a week, something like that, in the very early stages, to now doing over 30 hours a week and more when the manager needs it. So So that is a big thing. Your flexibility is very, very important. And finally, show that initiative. Research about that particular store. Go in there as a customer. See what that shop is about, what the staff are about, and what that manager is about. You do that. You go in there, you talk in their language, use phrases that they are familiar with. Try and get friendly. Go online. Go onto forums that people who are already working for Tesco. Go on there, speak to them, read how they speak. And you will make a big difference to that manager. And you already think, well, this is someone who already knows the language that I'm speaking. And I'm telling you, that will make a difference.